And today marks 1 year since President Trump took office for a second term. And on Capitol Hill, Republicans are sending a clear message. This is still Trump's party. Lawmakers may occasionally bristle or break ranks, but when it counts, most fall in line, even as the president stretches his power and defies public opinion on key issues like the Epstein files, affordability, and Greenland. And with the midterms now in sight, that loyalty is about to be tested as Republicans weigh standing with the president against standing with voters back home. Joining us now are MS Now political analysts and Republican strategist Susan Del Percio and Will Sommer, senior reporter at The Bulwark. Guys, a recent poll shows 81% of Republicans approve of President Trump's job performance. But we have seen some Republican lawmakers who were once staunchly loyal, like former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who just retired, push back on this administration over significant issues from the Epstein files to health care. And then you have Congressman Lauren Boebert, who just publicly criticized the president over his veto of a water bill. So those are just a few examples. Will, are these simply isolated standoffs, or are we seeing early cracks that could be widened for Republicans heading into the midterms?
You know, it's interesting. I think on one hand, Donald Trump has done so many crazy things, threatening Greenland, holding back the Epstein files, that you would think there would be a larger issue within the Republican Party, within the Republican caucus in Congress. Instead, as you said, the big story is Marjorie Taylor Greene retiring early. These other issues, there isn't a broader revolt you might expect. On the other hand, I do think even Republican voters are disappointed, in particular by the Epstein files and by the economy as well. This sense that Donald Trump is so focused on foreign policy that he's ignoring other things. And so I think there could be more discontent to come, even if we aren't really seeing it right now.
Yeah, Susan, sure, a handful of Republicans have broken ranks, but most people have remained loyal. And even those who have broken ranks at a time have oftentimes come home. If you take Josh Hawley, for example, and the vote over war powers on the Venezuela action. So how do you see it? Is this about loyalty, about unity, about fear? And how does an election year play into what happens next?
I'd say more fear and survival. Right now, I think there's still a lot of Republicans who are facing primaries. Let's look at Louisiana, what happened over the weekend. We have a sitting senator who the president endorsed someone else who wasn't even announced to be running. So
Senator Bill Cassidy, we're talking about.
Yes, sorry. And Bill Cassidy, who did vote for impeachment of Trump, which is probably why he still has Trump's ear, was very much torn on some of the nominees that Trump put forward and still voted to say yes.
Including RFK Jr., which was the big one that he had power to change.
And it's what everyone should learn from Marjorie Taylor Greene is take her word seriously. With President Trump, loyalty is a one-way street. He does not believe he should be loyal to anybody else. But I think we will start seeing some more breaks, not because of allegiance or unity for sake of that, but because when the primaries come and go, that's when elected officials, especially in the House, will have to face the voters. So we'll see it there. But also I'm hearing, to what extent will they, if they break with the president, besides losing their seat, like if they stand up to him, what does it get done? What does it change? Not a whole lot if you're President Trump, who does whatever he wants anyway.
Will, the MAGA movement has long rallied around this idea of America first, but we're seeing this administration bomb Syria and Iran, capture Maduro in Venezuela, make moves to take over Greenland, moves that are already reshaping America's role in the world. Where does the MAGA movement stand on this global shift in focus right now? Are they supporting the president's decisions?
Well, on one hand, I mean, Donald Trump, I mean, it's a cult of personality in many ways. Whatever Donald Trump tells them to support, they will in many cases. This idea that, really this is about, in the case of Venezuela or Greenland, this is about the Monroe Doctrine, now dubbed the Don Roe Doctrine. I think that is finding a lot of supporters. On the other hand, I think there is this sense that, America has a lot of domestic problems, issues like inflation, affordability. And why is Donald Trump getting involved with, say, threatening to bomb Iran or abducting Maduro? I think in polls, in focus groups, we're starting to see Trump supporters say, geez, I didn't know that Venezuela was going to be such a big issue in this presidency. Is this what I voted for? And I think that'll show up in the midterms.
How do you see it, Susan?
I agree largely with that, but I think when you're talking about a break in MAGA, what are you talking about? Like, we have to kind of break that down a little bit more. Are you looking at Trump's core supporters, Or are you looking at what we see, which often represents the MAGA movement, a lot of commentators and podcasters? Because you see breaks there, whether it be with Laura Loomer and Joe Rogan, you know, Joe Rogan versus Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly. We're seeing all these fractures. And I think sometimes we think of that as going to the voters. I think that right now, what is MAGA is going to matter less than, you know, and it's more about market shares for those podcasters versus what elected officials are going to do and how those polls are showing that general overall Republicans are feeling about the country.
Well, conversation to be continued. I'm just thinking of all the recent polling that gives us more of a pulse of the people, showing like 70% of American voters don't want Trump taking over Greenland, and the majority of voters don't approve of his handling of the economy. So we'll keep watching those poll numbers and if there's any movement as we get closer to the midterms. Will Sommer, Susan Del Percio, thank you both for the conversation.